You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. It has been an absolutely huge day. The World Health Organization, they have now declared an international pandemic as a result of the coronavirus, and talk about how things have changed dramatically since February 25th, when the Trump administration came out and said, look, we pretty much got this thing under control. Donald Trump said we got this thing down to zero. Well, if that's the case, why are we having more and more and more cases being confirmed every single day? All right, folks, if you look at here's the problem. We are so far behind in the testing. So look at this. As of right now, as of March 8th, in the United States, we've tested 1,707 people. Based upon our population of 329 million, that's 5 tests per 1 million. Look at South Korea. They've been far more aggressive in this. They've tested 189,000 people. That is nearly 3,700 per 1 million. They have a total of 51.3 million. This, folks, shows you what happens when you have idiots who are running the whole process. States all across the country have been saying that, look, we need some sort of leadership from the United States. Well, Dr. Fauci, who testified today before Congress, he said this thing is going to get worse before it gets better. Listen to this.
Based upon the current trajectory, how many people do you think will get this new virus, and how many people do you think will die?
You cannot predict, and that's.
I know you can't predict, but there must be. We have a graph. We have the beginning of a graph. We know this is going to go up. We have the experience of China. We have the experience of Italy.
Yeah.
Can you give us some projections?
It is going to be totally dependent upon how we respond to it. So I can't give you a number. If we now sit back complacently.
I'm not asking to be complacent. I'm asking for a realistic. I mean, that's what the public is looking for.
I can't give you a realistic number until we put into the factor of how we respond. If we are complacent and don't do really aggressive containment and mitigation, the number could go way up and be involved in many, many millions. If we taught to contain, we could flatten it. So there's no number answer to your question until we act upon it.
Based upon the current trajectory, how many people?
All right, folks, that is Dr. Anthony Fauci. He is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, one of the best and brightest in this country. Unfortunately, you do not have the best and brightest who are actually running this whole process when it comes to the White House. They've been given so many conflicting information, especially the problem is coming from Donald Trump himself. In fact, he was just tweeting today complaining about everyone else and what they are doing, as opposed to focus on trying to keep America's calm. In fact, here was a tweet that was sent out that I thought was quite interesting. Right here, go right here, folks. Jim Sciutto. This is what he put it out. Trump last week, coronavirus cases going very substantially down. Fauci today, the bottom line, it's going to get worse. Trump will have a vaccine in months. Fauci, vaccine in a year to year and a half. Trump, the death rate is going to be way under 1%. Fauci, death rate 1%, 10 times more lethal than the flu. Y'all, that's what's going on here. Also, Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C., has declared a state of emergency in the nation's capital as well as a result of this. You've also had Jay Inslee. Of course, Jay Inslee, he is the governor of the state of Washington. He stood before the cameras and declared that they are barring any events taking place out with 250 or more people in 3 separate counties. He has been, of course, one of the folks who has been extremely vigorous in combating this whole issue. The problem, though, is you've had over here, Donald Trump constantly fighting with him, calling him out, calling him utterly ridiculous as well. And so that's what's going on here. I told you, in San Francisco and Seattle, they've banned large gatherings. As a result, the Golden State Warriors, they are not going to be playing their NBA games in front of fans. Also, the NAB, one of the largest media shows attracting thousands every single year, they postponed their conference in Las Vegas. NCAA made their decision that no fans will be present during March Madness. All games will be played, but there'll be no fans present as well. This shows you exactly how folks are worried to death with what's going on. You also have, of course, in New York State, where the National Guard has established this perimeter around New Rochelle as well. It just goes on and on and on. Let's go to our panel. A. Scott Bolden is the former chair of National Bar Association Political Action Committee. Lauren Victoria Burke, writer with NMPA, and Derek Holly, president, Reaching America podcast, political analyst. Folks, again, what we are facing here is, I reiterate this again. Yesterday, I played the video of Larry Kudlow, the president's chief economic advisor, going on CNBC on February 25th saying this is, quote, to airtight contained. That's literally what he said, Derek. The crazy thing is you had Trump going to the CDC, interrupting the experts. If anybody wants a test, they get a test. Anybody, they want a test, they get a test. That's a lie. And so the problem here is this is, and this is the thing that jumps out. For all these MAGA folks who run their mouths, this is where you want government. This is where government matters. And you have somebody who came in and just gutted government in many ways, lots of jobs that are unfulfilled, and now we're seeing what happens when you don't have a proper response to a growing crisis.
Well, you know,
Derek.
our...
Hold on. I said Derek.
It's a growing crisis, yeah. And yeah, Trump puts his foot in his mouth a lot with this whole, from the beginning on this particular issue. But I think it comes down to government, as you stated, but it's going to be local government that needs to get involved in this. And I think that's what the case is. They had a a mayor of a town in New Jersey who had one of the first cases in New Jersey. A 67-year-old woman passed away. But they feel like right now that they've gotten a handle on the whole entire situation. And he's pointed to the fact that most of the people, they're going to have to, the result is that we're going to have to deal with local government. He also talked about. He also talked about. The last thing I'll just add before you dump in. Yeah, they can't get the test. That's a problem. The other thing, the point I was going to make is what the media is not talking about is the number of people who have recovered from this coronavirus. And I think that's something huge that needs to be put out there. Okay. Because he talked about the number of people in his community. He talked about the number of one person who died, but he talked about the thousands of people who have recovered.
Okay, but here's the issue here, and this is where you have to understand. I get this whole idea of it's local government, but the federal government was the one that rejected the World Health Organization offer help when it came to the testing. Now, we develop our own. You look at what's happening in Australia, where they literally have drive-through testing. Hasn't even happened here. Right. You have, where they announce, we're going to have 1 million tests by the end of the week. Then we get to Friday, we're not going to have those. And so that's the problem here. Local and state governments, again, I use Jay Inslee, the governor of the state of Washington State. Here he was trying to lead. You've got Trump slamming him and trashing him because he was critical. I'm sorry, in a health crisis, you do not need the president of the United States trashing governors who are dealing with people who are getting sick or who may very well die.
Yeah. Well, this is the non-reality, though. And this is where his lies and promotions, if you will, of everything's fine and positive, the rubber meets the road when you're talking about a health crisis, a world pandemic health crisis that's been labeled by the World Health Organization. On these local governments, though, they're relying on the federal government to have these tests. I know 2 people who have the corona have gone to the hospital and their doctors to be tested, and the kits aren't available here in the DMV. Here in the DMV.
Don't
and so the president, I said I knew them. I didn't say I was hanging out with them. But the president and
there's some hospitals that don't even want to test.
Exactly.
It's like, look, we don't want to know what you got, because the moment they test positive, it changes their whole protocol.
Exactly.
Okay, that's kind of scary then a hospital's kind of like, hey, I need you to go ahead home. We ain't testing you.
Oh, but they have to quarantine them, and then that's a huge expense. And insurance care. Watch and see what the indirect or the secondary cost is. So, for example, in Washington, it is gala season. There must be 10 or 12 galas in the next 3 to 6 months.
Around the country.
Okay, around the country, right?
First of all, game this whole thing out. Nonprofits and galas, church services. I'm already getting text messages from people who are saying that they're going to church online. So here's the whole. So all of a sudden, when you start talking about, Lauren, what's happening right now, stock market again down huge today as well. Okay, now it's lost more than 5,000 points in the past couple of weeks.
Right.
Now all of a sudden. Now it's going on and on and on. I mean, look, Bob, we're sitting here. We share an office with the folks at 50CAN, Education Reform Group. Their staff work at home for the rest of the month because most of the people take the subway.
Right.
And so I don't think people really understand. Airlines have said that this is twice as worse than what they dealt with after 9/11.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, 9/11, though, had that element, at least in the coming week there, of sort of knowing that it was, quote, over only because we stopped getting attacked after the first initial thing. This, of course, has the element of a complete sort of aura of unpredictability. You have absolutely no idea what's going to happen.
There's no bottom.
And there's no protocol from this government. There's no plan. Obviously, the president's going to get on TV tonight at 9 o'clock and probably confuse everybody further. Because, as you know, as we sit here, Nancy Pelosi and him are not even on speaking terms. She has already said that the government has to continue working. They are out of session, at least the House is next week. So anything, obviously, that involves people gathering in a large sense is going to be canceled or disrupted, and that, of course, is going to have a rippling economic impact, to say the least. Yeah. I actually do think that because power does love a vacuum, these state and local governments are going to have to step in. They really have absolutely no other choice.
No choice.
Of course, the problem is they don't have the power to do what the federal government can do.
Right.
With regard to resource, with regard to anything. So we're learning a lot more on watching like MSNBC and CNN and the doctors that are on there than we are from the President of the United States.
And now, hold on one second. Now we're getting what so Trump is going to be speaking in a primetime address on coronavirus again.
Right.
It shows you how idiotic this man is, where he dismissed this.
Right.
He was like, hey, this thing's going to go away, all sort of stuff along those lines, every single day.
He's a real estate agent. And he's a dumb real estate agent, right? He's a real estate agent that got $5 million from his dad to have his start because he's not self-made like Michael Bloomberg. So this is a guy who apparently knows nothing about just the basics of strategy and planning in a crisis, right? I mean, you don't really have to be an expert in everything. You don't have to be Dr. Fauci, but you got to listen to the experts and give them the access
I'm sorry.
to.
This is the same person who at the CDC who said the doctors told me that I know so much about this that maybe I should have gone into this instead of running for president. Like, my uncle was a professor at MIT, and so smartness runs in our family. This idiot actually said that.
He's got exactly the wrong personality to fix any sort of problem, but particularly something like this that requires him to give deference to others who have expertise.
And here's the deal. Here's the deal. Okay, even though he absolutely screwed up how they handled the whole HIV needle issue in Indiana, actually dared the person who, I mean, in this crisis,
Pence is
the person who is actually looking like a leader is supposed to lead is Vice President Mike Pence, in terms of having twice daily briefings, pulling folks together, and then again,
and getting out of the way.
And you got this, this toddler over there who's kind of like, hey, can I get on the microphone? Hey, it's sort of like bringing your child to a news conference. And no, I'm telling you, dealing with Trump is the equivalent of, I guess, when Stephen Curry had Riley, his daughter, and she would be grabbing the microphone and she would be like pointing to the press. That's Trump.
I mean,
it's like dealing with a grown-ass child.
Can I say something about local governments, though?
Hold on, go finish your point.
Obviously, Trump, he's out of bounds on a lot of this stuff right now. He's out of control, and he's lost with this. But at the same time, as you pointed out, I'm glad that Pence is here to navigate this whole thing. And most of the time, as the president, you're supposed to look to your people and shut up. Unfortunately, he does not.
Or get out of the way.
The problem here, Scott, the reason why this is such a problem is because what we're seeing with financial industry, what we're seeing with, all of these different sectors, what is the one thing he jumps to? Oh, we need a payroll tax. But the payroll tax only through the election.
Right.
See, again, what he's not doing is sitting the hell down and saying, okay, team, what we're about to endure is an economic calamity.
And this is our strategy.
And we need to, so what we should do
Come
is,
up with one.
Let's come up with a strategy.
Listen to your people.
what is our short term,
And
our
what is the long
midterm,
term?
our long term?
Exactly.
Look, I'm on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists. Okay? We've got regional conventions coming up in the next 2 months.
Right.
I'm Vice President Digital. We've got a national convention coming up in July 8th through 12th, which is the biggest economic. That convention, what we make from that convention, funds our entire organization.
For the year.
So, as a vice president, what do? Call our executive director. What's your plan? What are we doing? Here are our conference calls when it comes to whether or not we're going to cancel our regional conventions, whether we're going to continue them. If we do, are we offering refunds? We can go down the line into all the things that we're doing. We're not sitting here jumping, okay, cancel the convention. No, because we want to see what happens in March, in April, in May before we determine what we do in July. It's a methodical approach. What it's not is this, hey, no. Trump literally put a tweet out. Hey, good time to buy some stocks.
Yeah.
He literally put that out there. It was like, dude, do you see what's going on?
Dumb is dangerous.
You're lucky.
And we'll see tonight.
Dumb is
Whether
real
I was thinking that
makes
tonight.
it tonight. Whether he makes it worse is the question. Frankly, I think the governors and the state and local officials, the mayors, et cetera, should really ignore him. The problem is they can't completely ignore him because the federal funding and the federal money is real. So hopefully the members of Congress...
They asked Congress for $8.3 billion on this whole deal.
And hopefully the Republicans on the Senate side will figure out how to get him out of the way so he can just sign whatever he needs to sign.
And the $8.3 billion was specifically go to the states.
Right.
This is where in going back to January, this is where in moments of crisis, where again, all of a sudden it's okay, we gotta move billions now. Where can we take it from?
Right.
Where can we get it from? What can we do without having to even before we even go to Congress? Because you got to put together the right bill. Because here's the other piece, Scott. You got to know what to ask Congress for. You got to know whether, okay, are we asking Congress for $4 billion, or we're going to ask for $8.3 billion, and then all of a sudden, damn, we got to go back a week later and ask for $10 billion. It is understanding this process here, and the problem is, you're dealing with you're dealing with, okay, all the crazy conservatives who had CPAC. Who was running around going, this not real, this not real.
Right.
And guess where one of the first cases in Washington, D.C. came from? CPAC.
Right.
But these local and state governments have to do something to manage their businesses in their region. So, for example, these nonprofits, the national NABJ is in the summertime, but some of these conferences and galas are happening right now. The hotels, up until today in D.C., were trying to enforce those agreements. They were accepting money, they got money, but they were enforcing these agreements. And nonprofits and several of my clients were arguing on the phone with me about what can we do about this. They're forcing us to put 1,000 people in a dining room for a gala when we know that's unhealthy and unsafe.
Hold on one second.
Hold
on 1 second. Breaking: the Senate GOP just blocked an emergency paid sick leave bill intended to deal with the fallout of a global pandemic.
Well, that's actually not that bill. If that's the bill I think it is that DeLauro?
I'll pull up in a second. Keep going.
That bill is not the actual
This bill
sort of
put forth by Democrats.
for the emergency.
Right. But this bill put forth by Democrats would guarantee 14 days of paid leave for workers affected by the coronavirus. Because here's the problem right now.
Right.
Trump and his folks are only thinking about the corporation, how it impacts them.
And the stock market.
Here's the problem with what you're talking about. Okay, we just saw this with South by Southwest. Okay, they canceled South by Southwest. Monday, they laid off a third of their full-time staff.
Exactly. That's the second part of what I was going to say.
You mentioned the hotels. Now, and again, I'm not taking up the hotel side, but here's the problem here. Hotels, if I understand the hotel business, a lot of those businesses in Austin, their year was predicated on South by Southwest.
Right.
That gets canceled. Now it's like, oh my God. So what then happens? Then all of a sudden, you might then have hotel layoffs, restaurant layoffs.
Right. It's domino
food service,
effect.
all of a
Right.
sudden.
Exactly.
So now, what's now happening also, again, before I came on, 2 CBS News employees also now have coronavirus. Now they're moving on. I talked to one woman who's a contributor for another network. She said because an employee at that network may have tested positive, they said, hey, why don't you do your hit by Skype? What people don't understand is they got to look beyond just, okay, well, this event got canceled. Oh, March Madness, no fans. Okay, understand what March Madness, no fans means. We're not just,
no jobs.
We're talking not just even people who work inside of the stadium. We're talking about all of the companies that were sending employees who had activations during March Madness at the stadiums, things outside.
Concerts.
All of us. And so now we're talking about folks who I was talking to someone yesterday. This guy's a corporate. He's a planner. He's already had $100,000 in contracts that have been canceled. His business is conventions and planning and stuff along those lines. I mean, this thing, and this is why the government response is so important. This is why the testing was so important. Because and Trump's whole deal, I don't want to get them off the cruise ship because I don't really want the numbers to go up. No, you need to have a complete handle on what's going on here and how you separate, to your point, those who have gotten well and then those who sick. Italy, in 24 hours, 200 died in the last 24 hours. That's how real this thing is. And you can't have folks who are joking around.
But look at the irony that Trump's misleading statements or just lies and only being concerned about the stock market is actually contributing to the demise of the economy, which is one of his strongest political points, by him ignoring the reality of corona, by him saying that it's going away, that it's contained, there are lots of kits and so forth and so on.
But Lauren, this is where...
He had a previous idiot habit of always saying something stupid right before a market open, usually about China trade, and I can never figure out
keep
why.
the stock market
Who are you gonna say?
rolling.
Sorry.
Right, no. But the point is, this is where, again, you cannot be a one-trick pony.
He's not even a one-trick pony.
This is one of those things where leaders have to step back and go, okay, this is not just about the stock market.
Right.
This is literally about the entire economic infrastructure.
There is going to be no choice for your local and state and your state, particularly state governments. Frankly, what is going to happen is that his decisions will be overtaken on the local level because they have no choice. Without any leadership, with nobody leading from the top, you are going to have to make decisions that is like you see what Mayor Bowser just did.
But she's
not waiting for the federal government to do anything.
But there's only
the hospitality business or give some of these nonprofits cover for when they're trying to renegotiate these contracts.
The problem is when you need that money that you're losing on the business, which
there you go.
That's the problem.
So when Trump's farmers were losing money because of his tariff screw up, $30 billion. Boom, here's $30 billion. And so, not only that, all the badgering he did at the Federal Reserve, pissing them off, to force him to lower the interest rates because he wanted the economy to keep humming. Here's the problem. This is actually when your economic stimulus is even more so important. You shot your wad because your dumb ass pushed through this tax hike, this tax cut that cost $3 billion, and $3 trillion, and then the government already has had smaller revenue coming in, and so now you made yourself it made it even more difficult to make a financial move.
Which is why he keeps trying to cut food stamps to pay for that tax cut, right? So now you don't have that revenue coming in for that tax cut that you gave away to the top 1%. So there's that.
I just want people.
He's a piece of work.
And again, here's the deal, though. Here's the deal, though. All the people who are watching, I want you to be clear. This is not about creating panic. But you do have to pay attention to what is very basic. As you begin to see what is happening in other countries, the countries that moved quickly are the countries that are ahead of this game. People may say, oh, yeah, no. This thing percolated in January. We pretty much screwed off a month. And when you're dealing with a pandemic, a month,
It's a lifetime.
is a problem. When you overrule your CDC and the State Department says put infected people on an airplane with people who are not infected and don't tell anybody.
I know.
You overrule the health people.
Right.
It's a problem. And so we're actually playing catch up right now because here's the other thing, Derek. The federal government is the only entity that has the power in an emergency to say pharmaceuticals, come in. Mask makers, respiratory, come in. Yeah. We can exert a level. They're the only people who have that. Well, states, like depending upon your state, how much power your governor has, but nobody has the level of power the federal government has. And we're playing catch up right now. And Derek, I've been talking to people who are local and state officials, and they said we have been put behind the 8 ball because of this sort of just who's on first thing in the federal government.
I agree with you. There's a lot of confusion going on. I mean, the messages are mixed coming from the White House, and the president needs to chill, be quiet. But where I don't agree is that where somebody else is, another country is ahead of us on this right here. And I look at that because
they are ahead of us.
I look at it
as
the number of deaths in this country compared to other countries. How can you say that they're ahead of us when we have less
they've
deaths?
tested more people.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't
Yes,
know what we don't know.
they've
We don't
tested
actually
more
know that.
people.
Okay.
But more people have died in other countries than here. So how the hell are they ahead of us?
Wait, man. Follow here.
How are they ahead of us?
I will show you. And I will use.
I don't think there's any other metric other than death.
No, Derek. It's also when did it start? Perfect example. If I'm alive, I'm still here. No, Derek, follow me. Derek, so if on your let's say you're America.
That's true.
Let's say you're America. You're
That's
America.
not a hell of a metric.
No, Derek, wait a minute. You're America. Scott's Europe. Okay?
I don't want to be Europe.
Deal with it, okay? So Scott's over here is China, Europe, and all that sort of stuff. It's called making its way. Mm-hmm. Now follow me here. So if it's been there for like a month and a half, and it's been building and numbers been growing, it's making its way. Mm-hmm. It's building. Then all of a sudden, as it makes its way, you're obviously going to have fewer numbers because it hasn't spread. Now, let me stop right there. Let me go back to February 25th. Trump says, go back to that date. What were we told? We got, maybe about 15 cases. That's 15. Where are we now? Pull the chart up. Where are we now?
We don't know because we ain't
No.
We do know.
Stop right there. Hold up. Hold up, wait a minute. So we've gone from, that's tested. That's tested.
Correct.
We had less than 100 that was tested 3 weeks ago. Now, here's the deal. You just said it. We haven't even tested enough people.
I agree with you.
So the problem is,
they got it.
we haven't tested enough.
But ain't nobody dead.
Wait a minute.
Count the people that dead, right? Ain't that the metric that we're talking about right
Here's
now?
the deal.
The way you deal with this is you don't wait for people to drop dead.
Right.
You got to actually.
I'm gonna tell you
do
something.
serious
What I
testing.
believe, this
And
thing was
basically-
here in the United States long. It was here.
Oh, here comes the
Here comes
conspiracy.
I'm sorry.
Another
Based on what?
It's conspiracy.
Based on what?
You and I talked earlier.
Therapy.
And we both had. I was diagnosed as influenza B.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't have corona.
Yeah, you'd
Shorty,
be dead
it's
if
the
you had
same
corona.
symptom.
No, wait. Hold up. Wait.
Oh my God.
Pull
it up.
Hold up.
Pull it
Allow
up.
me to walk me
Pull
through.
it up.
Hold up.
Pull it up.
You were diagnosed with what?
Influenza B.
What were you prescribed?
Theraflu, whatever that is.
Tamiflu?
Tamiflu, yep. That.
Did it go away?
It did.
Okay. Do you know there's no vaccine for this?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Right.
So the difference here is they can't.
We don't know that, right?
Oh my God, we
Oh,
do.
you know the difference between
my God, we
corona
do know
and
this.
influenza
Okay.
B.
We do know this.
Yeah.
They do know the difference.
First of all, one of the things the doctors,
Okay.
one of the things they said was, they said one of the easiest tests. They said, hold your breath for 10 seconds, and if you do not cough, or let in those 10 seconds, then you more than likely are dealing with this because this is dealing with lungs.
That's right.
Okay, a very easy, just a simple thing to ask people to do. All right, if you exhale your breath for 10 seconds and you start coughing after 4 or 5, I'm just saying you can't say it's allergies. I'm just saying it's one of those things.
Everybody hold their breath. Let's see, let's see what happens. Because if somebody start coughing in them 10 seconds, I'm getting up.
All I'm saying this here is I want people watching. We do not want people to freak out. We don't want people to panic. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, so a lot of y'all are always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Nope. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they make these about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear. So we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, you know, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look. So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to rolandsmartin.com/pocket squares. All right, so first of all, that graphic is way too small. So tomorrow we're going to run it right down here all across the screen. So it's rolandsmartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at rolandsmartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, that goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.